Hello everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, the vodcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks Ben. Hello FiST Chat fans. Good to see you all today.
Absolutely. For our second episode on this fine Saturday afternoon, and we're going to focus specifically on Windows 8 today. We did one last week where we focused on Apple. And it's good to cover these stories because, we're in the middle of an interesting sort of era for personal computing. But before we get into that, don't forget our website, www.fistchat.com. You can get all our links there. You can subscribe to our audio via iTunes, RSS and FeedBurner, and our video episodes on YouTube, Vimeo and Digicosm TV. Interact with us on social media, Twitter, Google+, Facebook. Love to hear from you. We've got our ebook, The FiST Report, fistreport.com, hosted on Amazon, only 99 cents. Great value and a good read, I think. And it also supports us in producing the show. So thank you for that. And don't forget our supplementary content, the weekly blogs, the photography on Instagram and Flickr. And if you can, recommend us to anyone who may be interested in our weekly discussions. Now, Windows 8. We mentioned it last week, I believe, in relation to the start menu coming back. We're going to talk a little bit about that and the whole thing overall. We'll just start with a poll that we ran just this week. Should Microsoft bring the start button back to Windows? 67% said yes, 33% said no, which is probably an indication as to why they may be bringing it back, that we've got a majority there coming through. Now, there's a new update to Windows 8 coming. It's Windows 8.1, but the code name's called Blue, and a couple of Windows tech writers that I follow have been sort of going over it and talking about it in great detail. Now, everyone seems to be getting excited that somehow, Microsoft is going to quote-unquote fix Windows 8 with this release. I think they're getting ahead of themselves. The way Windows 8's come out is going to be the future, and if they add a little, start button down in the bottom just for old time's sake to keep everyone happy, that doesn't mean it's going to go back to the way it was.
Ben, this just makes me want to laugh. Last week, Apple, who are now producing a consistent product with no surprises, gets caned for no innovation. This week, Windows or Microsoft, who for years showed no innovation, innovate and they get caned for it. I mean, is this a case of you can't win?
Yeah.
Is this what's wrong with our tech set today?
And it's also a matter of perception and the way the media is running it. Apple and Microsoft have come from two completely different angles because Apple was so small for so long, it could afford to make drastic changes to its lineup and the user base could go along with it. Microsoft, on the other hand, became this massive behemoth and accounted for and still accounts for the vast majority of PC users out there in terms of the user base. And most normal PC users are not interested in change, particularly at the enterprise or business level, because it means retraining or changing to something that's not familiar. And they're afraid that they're not going to be able to get their work done if they can't figure out this new system. And we touched on it before that Windows 8 is a fairly radical departure from previous environments, despite the fact that you can still have the full desktop functionality in Windows 8.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say the irony was, though, that the reason that there were all these troubles in the past with updating and those sorts of issues was always because Windows was so difficult to manage as a in an office setting or a corporate setting. But you wonder now, it still has that functionality, it still has that desktop functionality. I mean, I don't mind Windows 8. I actually think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, as somebody who is a convert to Windows, a very late convert to Windows, I mean, I didn't really have much appreciation for it until Windows 7. I think it's fine. I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is, and this is I think they're not getting enough credit for, is that I'm probably going to get wrapped over the knuckles for this, but unlike Android, which to me just seems a rip-off of iOS, Microsoft actually did make something genuinely different for the mobile experience with this. And it actually, as far as I can see, is quite good. You know, I run Windows 8 every day on my Macs, for example, and that's a whole other thing as well.
Still don't understand that. Anyway, we'll leave that for another time.
So I can keep my foot in that environment. But I've seen Windows 8 tablets now, and although you know they don't quite have that sort of elegant edge in design, I did pick up a couple just recently that I think from Asus and some from Samsung. Yeah. That are really snappy. They work really well. They run all the Windows apps. If you know, you care about, you know, obviously using Office and making sure that integrates with your desktop experience. So, you know, I think, you know, it might have also been like, it's kind of like that Vista reaction. I mean, Vista obviously had some problems anyway, but one of the other things was that, it's you know, it's too different from XP and some of the things that it does. And people have forgotten that when XP was released, people were up in arms with that OS as well, because that was, apart from the fact that it had a massive security breach in it, it was also massively different to the previous generations of Windows. So because, you know, you didn't have the DOS environment, so people couldn't run their DOS apps in it. So it seems like every time, you know, Microsoft releases one of these things, except for Windows 7, I think, because Windows 7 generally just fixed what was wrong with Vista and made it a whole lot better.
So, well, just on that, I mean, this is interesting. Windows 7 is probably what Windows always should have been, or always aspired to be, and only took them 15 years to get there. So, you know, people can debate that in their own time. Do you think, though, that, you know, when we say, okay, Windows 7 is the most successful because it was really just a succession of all the other Windows that fixed all the problems, and it runs really well, it's a great system. Is it really that that's the essence of personal computing? And the reality is most of us, despite the fact we've got tablets, don't really want to move to a tablet base. Or tablets limit us so much, we use them for convenience, but we've always got a desktop at home that runs a good old-fashioned Windows system because that's where we really get any serious work done, like burning DVDs and stuff like that.
You know, in the cloud environment, we don't need to do any of this stuff. And this is why...
Is that the tension?
Well, it would have to be, wouldn't it? Can you tell me that you could do any serious productivity on your iPad, for example?
Well, we know the answer is no.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like any time soon that that's going to happen either, you know, at least within the next 5 years, unless something dramatic comes out.
Yeah. I mean, I find and this is slightly off topic, but I think you'll see where this is going. The AirBook from Apple was very interesting because that is a purely cloud-based sort of experience that still has its roots in desktop, I guess, with the OS and the way they look at it. I actually think that the Microsoft or Windows 8-based tablets are very close to that experience as well. And I think that that's really the ground they're competing on. But I don't think that really the consumers or the users are ready for that experience.
But you would think with time and given the history of how Windows has been released and accepted and all of that sort of thing, that eventually that they'll have to come around to it, especially if the hardware reaches the point where it does become much more functional.
I agree, and I think that that's where Office will play a huge role. I mean, you know, Microsoft is the only, or Office is the only multi-platform through Windows 8 that you can have on a tablet, be productive, and then go back to your desktop. And if you're using the cloud, then suddenly Windows 8 becomes very, very powerful, and certainly would be the natural next progression you would assume for a sort of corporate or business setting.
Yeah, exactly. All right, just finally, do you want the start button to come back, Steve? Do you think that's of any interest to you?
I do. I haven't forgiven Apple for taking some things off the screen over late versions of OS X. In fact, I've never forgiven them for 10.1 when they removed an icon at that stage. that we'd always enjoyed on System 9. So there you go. I'm just petty when it comes to that.
Absolutely. Well,
what about you, Ben?
For my part, I think this is just a complete waste of time. I've adapted to using it. I use Windows 7 in my workplace though, because that's what they use, and I can interchange with with Windows 8 here at home. No problem.
Do you work through the cloud?
Yeah, it can work through the cloud. It's no problem. In fact, it's got better cloud integration, as you would expect, particularly through SkyDrive. I can access SkyDrive on my iOS devices, on my Macs, through Windows and Mac. So it's like it doesn't matter. Again, that provides the best experience for picking up whichever device you've got, and you can keep working on a document, or you can keep reading a document, or whatever. And I think that's important. I think Microsoft doesn't get enough cred for that either, because there's all that talk about iCloud and whatever. iCloud is actually a very limited service. It's got some interesting features, and for example, when I do the FiST chat notes every week, I could do it on my phone, on my iPad, on my Mac, or my iMac, and sometimes I interchange between those devices and they all get synced via iCloud. But it just doesn't have that same thing as SkyDrive, where essentially my entire system there that I want on there is replicated across devices in terms of my file structure, which is something that iCloud doesn't do. So I just find, just in wrapping up, that I think Microsoft probably deserves a bit more credit for what they're doing. Sure, they haven't sort of come out of the gate in the cleanest of fashions, and perhaps they could have communicated their intentions better with what they wanted to do, but they had to do this. It's a mobile personal computing world that we're living in at the moment, and that's what Windows 8 is.
And it seems one of the few people maybe that are actually using it properly.
Well, I'm sure that there's more than just me. I think it's just certain people are making a lot of noise about it not being all that functional.
Well, FiST Chat fans, if you're using Windows 8 like Ben is, tweet him immediately. Let's hear some more about this if there's any of you out there. I certainly actually, Ben, I'm going to the MacBook Pro I've got now. I'm going to use SkyDrive because obviously I've got Office on that. I've got Office at work, and I'm going to start exploring using at least some of Microsoft's, more progressive features.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. So thanks again for the chat.
No problems at all. See you in the SkyDrive, folks.
Absolutely. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.